Hey, how y'all doing? Thank you for choosing the Magnificent Mongo Slave for all of your wrestling content and information. Like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Welcome to the state of the NWA. Some people don't care about the NWA. I do. I watched NWAPowerrr on YouTube when it was on. I've always enjoyed that show. So let's talk about the NWA. First, we got to go through the history. The NWA was founded in 1948 as a partnership of several different promoters for the purpose of deciding a single world champion of professional wrestling. Ended up forming a cartel using their national influence to protect their own businesses, blackball performers and promoters who didn't fall in line. And as the influence of the NWA grew, it became a national thing where uh, just a small number of promoters ran pretty much everything in the United States. Different people, due to the politics, they started to spin out. So you had, I think, AWA was the first to the American Wrestling Association, which was Vern Gagne's territory. Span out in like the 1950s, so like 1954 or something like that. Vern Gagne couldn't get a match with Luthez. He just said, to hell with this, and he left. Of course, the McMahons, McMahon, Vincent J. McMahon, and Tootsmont left. The WWF left the NWA in 1963. And so over the years, the NWA's power base began to disappear. And it really coincided with the rise of Vincent K. McMahon, the son of Vincent J. McMahon. And when Vince Jr., who we call, the evil Mr. McMahon, when he started taking over wrestling in the 80s, the NWA started to die out. All the different territories started to fall apart. Most of them was just spending too much money. Others just couldn't find the revenue or the declining interest and different things like that. So the NWA pretty much ended up dying by 1992 when WCW bought out, when when Ted Turner bought out Jim Crockett Promotions and turned it into WCW. That was pretty much the end of the NWA. But there was still some licensing around, and so WCW spin out of the NWA. And then ECW shows up 1992, 1993. The ECW, the world champion in ECW was essentially the NWA world champion. And then, of course, Shane Douglas infamously threw the NWA world title on the ground and crowned himself the ECW World Heavyweight Champion and renamed the promotion Extreme Championship Wrestling. So the NWA was essentially dead. Now, the title still existed, of course. Everything continued to exist, just on a much, much like lower than ECW level. And if ECW was damn near the Indies, it was crazy how low the NWA was. So that was pretty much it for a while. And then in the early 2000s, the NWA had a resurgence, and thanks to TNA. So the Jarretts, after the WCW closed, the Jarretts started up the TNA Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. They licensed out the NWA World Title. Jeff Jarrett and Ken Shamrock and R-Truth and all those guys started becoming the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And it was a pretty cool time. It was a resurgence in the NWA until as a national promotion, or actually as being partnered with a national promotion, because TNA was different. It was kind of a licensing agreement or something like that. And then in 2007, that kind of fell apart. TNA or the NWA and TNA couldn't come to terms on the continuance of their agreement. So the NWA pulled their championship, and TNA created their own title. And so the NWA title pretty much died again in 2007. So then a couple of years, a long time went by, like 10 years went by where the NWA champion did not matter to the wrestling world. Nobody cared. Sure, it appeared on like Japanese shows, and it popped up here and there in the independents, but the NWA is essentially a non-entity until 2017 when Billy Corgan, who used to be part of a conglomerate that owned and operated TNA. So Billy Corgan, of course, from Smashing Pumpkins, he wanted to get into wrestling. He started getting into wrestling via TNA. So him and a group of investors bought into TNA wrestling. That thing started to fall apart almost immediately. This was in 2016, I believe. So then that started to fall apart. Anthem came in. Anthem gave him his money. He went on his way. He used that money to buy the NWA. And a lot of people, there was a Vice article that essentially says like the NWA was worthless. Why did Billy Corgan just buy it? The history is dead. The tape library is gone. What is it that he's buying? And Billy Corgan pretty much said, like, it's a brand from his childhood that he kind of wanted to operate in. There's a specific style of wrestling that is associated with the NWA that he kind of wants to get out there. And he had some new ideas as well, as far as he wanted to focus more on digital, not so much on trying to be on TV. And so NWA Power was born. And well, before we go to NWA Power, he actually decided that he was going to build up the NWA reputation by partnering with other promotions. So he began this long stretch of time where the NWA was sort of a subset of Ring of Honor, where there would be a lot of Ring of Honor guys, and the NWA title would be featured alongside the Ring of Honor World Championship. And of course, this led to the infamous, the highest that the NWA title would reach in years would be All In, when Cody Rhodes wrestled Nick Aldis at All In for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I'm pretty sure this was 2018 maybe, or 2017, one of the two. So Cody wins the title. Then there was the 70th anniversary show, the NWA 70th anniversary show, where Cody drops the title back to Nick Aldis. And essentially, Cody's popularity as the NWA champion is partly what led to All Elite Wrestling. So you can pretty much see that All Elite, WWE, WCW, ECW, and TNA all kind of piggybacked off of the NWA for a little while. So then when Cody left, Aldis is the champion again. NWA Power. Now NWA Power begins. And it begins as a YouTube show. And it was very well received at first. People were really kind of enjoying the studio wrestling aspect. For people who don't understand what studio wrestling is, it's basically a bunch of matches and different things taped in one place. So it's not a traveling show. They tape everything in one place. There was no interest. There was no interest things. It was only an hour. Very easy to watch. Very easy to digest. Very fun wrestling show. The matches were not too long. It was good. It was a good show. And then and then controversy hit. Jim Cornette makes a joke about Ethiopians and fried chicken. I think the joke goes, such and such is so tough he can ride through Ethiopia with a bucket of chicken strapped to his back or something like that. And people said it was racist. And Jim Cornette had already been a problematic character from things that he said about female wrestlers and stuff like that. So people were upset about Jim Cornette. And the SJWs were mad about Jim Cornette. So Dave Lagana and the NWA decided they were going to alter specifically that episode to take the joke out. And then further episodes of the NWA Power Show were edited to take out Jim Cornette, who had ended up resigning in anger. Even though he apologized for the joke, he was angry at Dave Lagana for caving to the mob and pretty much putting all the blame on him when the show is taped, which means Lagana probably heard the joke and then didn't think it was offensive. And so because Dave Lagana didn't think the joke was offensive, and Dave Lagana then put all of the blame for the joke on Jim Cornette, and then the fans got mad because a lot of the NWA fans were fans of Jim Cornette. And then a lot of them are anti-SJWs. So that a lot of them were kind of angry that Dave Lagana was altering the episodes to take Jim Cornette out of the show. So then NWA Power just suffered because the SJW stopped watching it because it was associated with Jim Cornette. Even though Jim Cornette quit the show, he was associated with it and they refused to watch it. And then the anti-SJWs were just, mad that that Dave Lagana altered the episodes to take Jim Cornette out of it. So it was just like an ugly situation. And then 2020 happens. That's what 2019, 2020 happens, and of course the pandemic hits. So the pandemic hits, and so the big pay-per-view, which I believe was the Crockett Cup, which the NWA had planned for this year, which is 2020, is canceled due to the pandemic. But the main event of that show was going to be Nick Aldis versus Marty Scurll. And this is where we get really with the low blows. Because Marty Scurll, who was supposed to main event that show, gets hit with a speaking out accusation saying that he had sex with a 16-year-old girl, which he then admitted that he did, claiming that he didn't know how old she was. So Marty Scurll is out. He's pretty much out of the wrestling business in general. And then things get even worse when the creative director, who I guess is the booker and the director and everything of NWA, Dave Lagana, gets hit with his own speaking out allegation, and Lagana resigns from the NWA, and leaving pretty much Billy Corgan holding the bag. So then so if that wasn't bad enough, Ricky Starks, former NWA television champion, decides to quit the promotion. He jumped ship to All Elite Wrestling. A couple of weeks later, Zicky Dice, who was the current NWA television champion, also quit the promotion. And so far he hasn't popped up anywhere. But the only two television champions in the Billy Corgan era have both quit. So then in July 2020, Raven comes out and starts saying that, hey, he's hearing rumors that the NWA probably will be closing because the pandemic and everything is so hard with Corgan, and that got the Twitter fingers tweeting. Corgan will come out a couple of days later and dispel this rumor. He says that the NWA will be fine. It's just going to be a very difficult time because of the pandemic, and he's committed to running a product, but only under safe circumstances and all this type of stuff. But it didn't end there, because then Bruce Pritchard decides to go on his podcast. He technically was not talking about the NWA. Technically, Bruce Pritchard was doing a review of a TNA episode. Now, Bruce used to work in TNA. I forget what his actual job was in TNA. I'm pretty sure he was in the office doing something or other. But he also, everybody knows by now, Bruce Pritchard is the executive creative director or something like that for Raw and SmackDown in the WWE. And he's been doing this podcast for several years. So he doesn't talk about recent stuff, though. So he says that Nick Aldis, who was working in TNA as Magnus at the time, simply did not have the it factor, and it was not really all that interesting. And so I was about to call him Magnus, but Nick Aldis decides to respond. So he comes out and he says that, that Bruce's comments had him feeling real low as Raw's all-time ratings or something like that. And it's kind of weird because the NWA is not running. And this guy is the ambassador of the NWA as the NWA World Champion. He is the ambassador, the voice, the face of the promotion, and he has absolutely nothing to fall back on other than cheap shots about Raw's TV ratings, which is still a lot better than whatever the NWA is supposed to be doing. But it's just been a really horrible situation for Billy Corgan and the NWA, and so that's sort of the state of the NWA. They're in the lurch right now. The pandemic has no end in sight. Talent is leaving. Like I said, Ricky Starks left, Zicky Dice left. Who knows how many other people are trying to leave? And then you have a situation where other wrestling promotions are still running. So AEW in particular is still running, and AEW needs women because a lot of their women are stuck overseas, either because they're Japanese or they're injured, like Chris Statlander and Britt Baker. And so they just have no women's division. So they're no doubt looking around at other, they're looking, of course, at free agents, but they're also going to be looking at Thunder Rosa and Melina, who are, seasoned. People know who they are. They're not white. And, that can actually help with AEW's quote unquote diversity problem, with them being Latinas and all that type of stuff. So they could be looking at getting cannibalized, which is kind of what happens when promotions are growing. AEW needs help. I don't know what to do about that. It would be irresponsible for the NWA to try to stop these women from going out finding better jobs. That would be completely and totally irresponsible. And Corgan doesn't come across as a guy who's irresponsible. But like I said, the NWA has a good opportunity, have a solid plan. Well, their plan is to be a digital promotion because, TV is dying. And it makes sense that you will focus on digital because digital is actually growing. There's opportunities there with Hulu and Amazon Prime and all the different streaming services that people are interested in. So even if the YouTube thing doesn't work out, they still have other options out there in terms of streaming services to partner with to pump money into the NWA to keep it alive. So all they have to do is keep their talent. And I don't know if they're paying talent while the talent is out, because that's really a tough thing to do. Because, you know, again, there's other promotions running, and paying people to sit at home is not is not the deal. That's, you're going to run out of cash real quick. So that's the state of the NWA. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What did you think of all this? You know, what do you think of all this taking shots at Bruce Pritchard and people leaving the NWA? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.